Today we're going to dive into the rumors of the sequel trilogy potentially being erased. The rumor states that there is a civil war going on right now at Lucasfilm between Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy on the future of Star Wars. The rumor continues to describe that the plot device created in Rebels, the episode World Between Worlds, is going to be used to render the sequel trilogy as Legends material as if it never happened, and therefore creating a new opportunity to create new canon movies to replace the sequel trilogy. In the description below, you'll find a link to the original article, as well as the time codes for the different topics we'll discuss. And my good friend Ged's going to join us to help break this rumor down. So Ged, I'll flip it over to you. When you first read this rumor, what was your initial reaction?
Well, it kind of caught me out of left field. I hadn't really thought about the inclusion of the veil. However, you can actually go back before Rebels to really get a sense of the capabilities that kind of intersection in the Force had, right? Like if you go back to Clone Wars season 3, episode 15 to 17, it's like ingrained in my mind, right? Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, and Obi-Wan Kenobi go to the planet of Mortis, where all Force converges. And if you watch those 3 episodes closely, the father, which is the balance of the light and the dark side, I mean, that's an entirely different conversation. But if you look at the scene where they walk into his chamber, that's literally the veil.
Yeah.
And then you see it again in Rebels. I don't know if it was intentional, but as ridiculous as it sounds, I think it gives them a great opportunity. Like they can rewrite the script if they want to.
Yeah, and in the article they mentioned, to remake kind of the trilogy in George Lucas's vision. So saying that, George Lucas worked with Dave Filoni hand in hand on Clone Wars, so he would have been part of that Mortis arc. Whether or not his involvement was there in Rebels, I don't know. But every time you hear Dave Filoni do an interview, he always talking about, talk to George, reference George, brought George in on this.
Yeah.
So you got a feeling, that kind of sets up with what George kind of thought was possible for that universe.
Well, I guess, hold on. Before I go any further, what did you think of the 3? Honest opinion. Forget about what anyone else is going to say if they watch us. What did you think of The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker?
I hated it. So for anyone watching, you could click the card in the top. I went on a rant on how JJ is actually to blame, not Rian Johnson of the sequel trilogy. Here's my simplistic view. I think everyone had a view in their head what happened after Jedi, right? I think almost every single person thought Luke built the Jedi Temple and started building up the Jedi Order again, right? That's what I had, even reading, I read the EU books that are now Legends in the Thrawn trilogy. Like that's what Luke eventually ended up doing. So I think everyone had that in their heads. And yes, the Force Awakens and Last Jedi, like they do mention he did that. But when we get to Luke, it's like all that stuff's been destroyed. So to me, it felt not what I was expecting right off the get-go. And I think I had so much high hopes in this one direction. And when it went a completely different lane, I was, mind you, I'm not one of these people like screaming that my Star Wars is now ruined. I just think they can make more Star Wars, right? Like The Mandalorian's awesome, Clone Wars has been awesome.
Yeah.
But I think
here's the thing. Remember, you
fan,
can't.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't have 4 decades of fans streaming across. What is it? 3-4 generations of people. Yeah. You gotta understand, there's gonna be a percentage of people that loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't hate them, and I didn't hate them because there's no way that everyone was gonna be super happy. Having said that, if they really wanted to scrap this, and if I'm not mistaken, there's a reference to a couple other things in different universes kind of getting the scrap and the redo and the start over. I mean, like I said, they have the opportunity to do this because of the veil should they want to. The question is it going to save Star Wars? Can you save the Skywalker? Can you save the Skywalker franchise by redoing the last 3? What are you going to do about Jar Jar? Are you going to jump back like 6 times over and have Qui-Gon not save him, have him splat all over the pavement and just kind of go a different route? I guess my question is like, at what point are you band-aiding things so much that the story is no longer recognizable? And I'm only playing devil's advocate.
No,
I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea at all, but
I 100% agree. I would love the drama and nuking the trilogy and like creating all those new storylines. But on the flip side of the coin, like to your point, there's a generation who have grown up with Rey as their hero and Finn and Poe. What are those people going to think when they're like, "Oh, the Star Wars I like doesn't mean anything anymore"? So
that's it.
You know,
how do you discount the validity of that, right?
Yeah. So like those fans, they're going to be alienated then. And then on top of it, I think the biggest thing why this probably would never happen is like Carrie Fisher, rest in peace, not available for a redo. There's no way you're getting Harrison Ford again. And you could probably
not enough technology could make that guy look 30 again.
Yeah. And you might be able to get
Mark
Hamill. Yeah, like Mark Hamill kind of slyly always panned the new movies on how that's not my Luke. Like Luke wouldn't have done that. It's like maybe he would come back to like show what he thought that role should be, but no, those parts, it'd be a tough pill to swallow to do that. I think we both agree that this is pretty far-fetched to actually happen. But let me flip it to you another way now. Is there precedence of this happening elsewhere in Hollywood? So,
I mean, at the end of the day, Hollywood is not an art; it's a business. So if there are enough people that say, "I'm going to spend X amount of money to go watch this again," and then when it comes out, I'm going to spend X amount of money to buy it, then there's always a business case for it. I don't know if I'd call it a precedence as much as I'd call it a business case. If you could redo something, if you could redo one superhero, scrap it, what would it be?
Well, I think the Snyder Cut's going to give us a little bit of a window into that.
Do not disagree.
Yeah.
At all.
You know, fans are clamoring for it. They're actually releasing it, which is, I think that's the big thing, right? Like, we just released this movie, what was it, 2 years ago? Now we're going to put out a new version of it, which will completely alter which way those storyline threads were going. And what if fans don't like it? Then which one's the real one?
You know, which one the real one is going to be the one that makes the most amount of money. I mean, I agree. If I could blow any of them up other than the Hulk from the MCU, I would probably blow up either Justice League or Batman vs Superman.
Yeah. And then, you know, you spoke of the Hulk. Like, I actually liked the Ang Lee, Eric Bana Hulk. And then and then a couple years later,
Edward Norton. You don't want to see me hungry.
Hulk. Yeah. And then all of a sudden MCU starts and it's like, actually, we're going to go with Mark Ruffalo now. So
who was amazing.
Yeah.
And do people ever think of the others?
No. They you think of the good one.
That's right. So I guess in answer to your previous question, which one is the real one? The real one was the good one. The problem is you can't screw it up again.
Yeah.
Like you have to take it deep.
Yeah, and like how many Spider-Mans have we had, right?
38. One of them was 25, I think. Like that Australian guy I think was my age.
Yeah. And I feel they're all their own little bubble, right? And they all have their own little pocket of fans.
And I loved that Spider-Man, by the way.
Yeah,
the older guy. What was his name? No, not Toby. Get out of here. The Australian stud kid with Emma Stone.
Oh, Andrew Garfield.
You loved Andrew Garfield. Oh man, those were good. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Tom Holland stuff's fantastic, but
yeah.
I think when it comes to superhero movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, I mean, how many bajillion different Kirks has there been and different characters there? I don't think it matters how many times you redo them. I think that every time you redo them, you get to influence a different generation. And Star Wars has that opportunity to kind of circle it back. And I think that Star Trek and I think that the Hulk and, you know, all these other movies we just talked about are great examples of that.
Yeah, and
you can redo them a million times, man. It's not religion.
Yeah, and Star Trek introduced the whole the red matter blowing up, right, causing the parallel or the alternate timelines, and then obviously
look at X-Men.
Yeah, X-Men with Days of Future Past, and now Endgame, right?
Incredible.
stones. So every major franchise now has that plot device to change what's been done. And Star Wars has it with the World Between Worlds. So it's there.
Yeah.
It could be used.
Yeah. And that sequence was incredible, by the way.
Yeah, I went and rewatched
that sequence of Ezra being in the veil it was definitely one of those moments where I was sitting in front of the TV. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought in a million years that was how we were going to get resolution to what happened to Ahsoka.
He is without a doubt the best Star Wars character ever. Just so we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, she's in my top 2 probably.
Yeah.
So if they don't like the direction of Star Wars and it says the infighting is with Jon Favreau, like
how do you fight with Jon Favreau?
Yeah.
Like, well, first, if Jon Favreau says you're going to do something in Star Wars and Dave Filoni's beside him, you go, yeah, go ahead.
So I think we would both hand our trust 100% to those two gentlemen. They kind of...
Without exception.
Yeah. Like what Filoni did with those last 4 Clone Wars episodes with Ahsoka and Maul, that's some of the best Star Wars ever created.
Incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, incredible.
And that's, it's an animated show. And I like those 4 episodes better than the entire sequel trilogy.
And you're not alone.
Yeah.
I've heard that those and The Mandalorian were better than the last 3 Star Wars movies from a number of people.
Yeah. So with the rumor with Favreau fighting with Kathleen Kennedy, does that make sense to you? Because Kathleen Kennedy is the president of Lucasfilm. Favreau, as far as I know,
Jon Favreau.
He's Jon Favreau, but he's been hired to direct The Mandalorian and write a show. So can the writer or director of a show challenge the entire president to kind of force Star Wars in a different direction?
Well, can the average person get the Zack Snyder cut relaunched? I think so. I think that if people have enough backing in us and enough momentum behind them, I think that absolutely. Yeah. So you get George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni standing against Kathleen, whatever her face is. Yeah. That's a pretty short conversation in my books.
Yeah. And my guess is
the last time I checked, Disney's not a privately owned company.
Yeah. Exactly. And my guess is there is support on either the board of directors or the new CEO for Jon Favreau, which is probably why he's getting this kind of elevated status, right? Let's play this out here. If what this rumor is, so first off, we both agree we think it's a little far-fetched. But if you dig into the previous examples of what this source reported, it was kind of like they nailed the end of Rise of Skywalker almost scene by scene. And that was posted, I think, in November. So they obviously know somebody in Lucasfilm or, whether it's the janitor who got a copy of the script or they actually know someone of power. I feel like there is a little bit of validity there. So if it did turn out to be true, how do they make this happen? The rumor states that the Emperor had, obviously we see in the Rebels episode, he's aware of the veil, that he has mirrors that he could access as a portal. He had one on the Death Star, one in Exegol. I would almost imagine he has one on Coruscant somewhere. So if what they said is accurate, the way they would reset the timeline is when Palpatine falls down the shaft, he uses the portal, he goes into the veil, and then I would imagine someone's waiting there to take him out.
Yes.
That's kind of what I got from reading it. So saying that then, who could be the person to be waiting for Palpatine to do him dirty, and / who would be powerful enough to take Palpatine out?
The daughter or the father from Mortis.
Okay.
It's not going to be the son because he represents the dark side. But if I remember correctly from the Mortis episodes, the daughter was very self-sacrificing. I think you see when Palpatine enters the veil, I think you see the daughter. I don't know if the father lived that long. I'm little off of my time frame, I think, on this one. But I think you see the daughter do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think you see the daughter do it.
Yeah.
She comes out of nowhere as a who is this character, does the deed, disappears.
So do you feel this is like the Force correcting itself because it's been unbalanced?
You got it. You got it. Because the father was the balance between that son and daughter.
Yeah.
The son is too selfish to do it. I think the daughter does it, and they leave it at that, and they let people like us talk about it for the next 10 years.
Yeah. I love that.
But then what happens after?
Yeah. Exactly.
What about you?
The only logical person would be, for me, is Rey. The main reason why I kind of thought her was, with her being the Force user left, I would think that maybe some of those Jedi who she heard in her head in Skywalker could still speak to her, right? So maybe she hears Ahsoka or Ezra. And then did she, I know they tried to sell the love story a little bit, did she love Kylo enough to think that if I use the veil, do I save Kylo's life? Do I save Luke? Do I save Han Solo? Like, she would be essentially saving everyone that she cared for during that trilogy. So, but doing so,
It's not a bad play.
Yeah.
What about Anakin as a Force spirit?
As a Force, I don't know if they'd have the ability. Then they'd have to ramp up. The Force ghost again.
You assume the veil is any type of reality, right?
Yeah. True.
There's nothing says that in this dimension, which is kind of the best way to describe it. There's nothing that says that people that are not mortal or present can't be effective. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, does Ezra not get odd help when he is in the veil?
He is he's hearing stuff. I think he's getting help from Kanan, but he's hearing Anakin speak. He's hearing Yoda. He's hearing Obi-Wan. He's hearing Vader. So all those Force, spirits, energy, whatever you want to say, are all kind of swirling around there.
Almost like the balance to the Force.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a bad thought.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be very poetic to have Anakin in some form right the wrong that he set the universe down on.
Yeah.
That I would go the route of the daughter, just to take it back to the root of the actual balance between the Force in its purity, right?
Yeah. And then by doing the daughter, you do not have to somehow convince Daisy Ridley to show up and shoot a scene to nuke her trilogy.
You got it. You can get Cate Blanchett. She loves to drop those bombs in Lord of the Rings. Just shows up all blonde and stuff. Bah, it's over.
Yeah. Love it. Ged, thank you very much for joining the video today. Is there any words or anything you'd like to add where we can find you?
Well, obviously, I have my own YouTube channel, Ged Smythe, GEDSMYTH. I do some movie reviews on there for anything from the early 90s to the mid 2000s. You can also find me as part of the Get Connected team. That's Get Connected on YouTube. Write a bunch of fun tech articles. So please check me out wherever. And Tyler, I hope you'll have me on here again.
All right, will do, my friend.